think it was his last name.
Count the days since you've been gone. I go out and make believe you won't be gone too long. Run up and catch the bus, almost miss it again. A window seat and I watch the world rolling by. It only takes a moment for the show to begin. A big dog is walking the man, got a big bag to fill. And shot size on the corner, drinking a gin. Not a worry in the world until she gets to the end. Always gave your best, you did. Haven't smoked in years, but I still want a cigarette.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome, hey! I had to come out from behind the camera. Hey, it's the Dispensary Guy. Welcome everybody live. We got a special higher side chat for you. You get it? Come on, man. Give me a little credit. We got Guy, we got Tyler, we got the District 23. We're gonna have a little chat with everybody. I'm just gonna hand them the microphone. And I'm going to get out of the way, and we're going to talk. We got a bunch of good people here, and we're just going to see what they got to say. Thanks for joining us, and we'll let you take it over. Guy?
Oh, my goodness.
That's it. So what are we talking about?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you all for tuning in, and thanks everyone who's here with us.
Hi, Guy.
Hello. My name's Guy Citron. I'm running for State Assembly here in Legislative District 23 with my good friend, Mr. Tyler Powell, sitting to my right. And tonight we are at Sonia's place. Sonia, you want to jump in the frame here? Say hello?
Sonia.
Why don't you say a quick word?
Word.
Okay. And, we're here to talk about cannabis, I think. That's the focus of tonight.
What are the big things you find at cannabis? Well, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah.
What brings you to cannabis? What brings you?
Whoa.
Excuse me, not to cannabis. What brings you
Jimi Hendrix.
to running?
What?
Why are you? What brings you to sit in that chair tonight?
Wow. In 2023, my friend Tyler and I realized that it just required two people to just campaign really hard to change the entire conversation in this district to actually make it possible to get elected. But it actually took, going to land use board meetings and library commission meetings and school board meetings and actually listening to people, rent leveling boards, and hearing the frustration and realizing that if you could promise representation, that you were going to listen and advocate and try to solve real problems for real people, that you could rise in politics here. So I'm running because I truly believe that we are those two guys and that we have it this year. So really excited to be here with all of you tonight. And I kind of want to pass the talking stick so that everyone kind of gets a chance to introduce themselves real quick.
Here,
yeah.
All right. I'm Tyler Powell. As Guy said, I'm his running mate. What brings me to this chair is a guy asked me to be here. Realistically speaking, I wasn't planning on running a second time, but I'm glad I chose to. In general, public service is very important to me. My family has a history of it. I was raised with, the concept that if you've been given a lot, you should be giving back. And, when I was growing up, my family was pretty wealthy. I was very lucky. And then I got to experience the other side of the coin. We lost everything in 2008. Every single member of my family went bankrupt. We lost the grocery stores that we had built. And I kind of lost my future. I spent my entire life being groomed effectively to take over ownership of a company that no longer existed. So I started a handyman business in Phoenix, Arizona, and then found out that the childhood epilepsy that I thought was gone had come back, and I started having all kinds of health issues, and I couldn't keep that business going, and I ended up homeless. I was living out of my truck, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And I had met a wonderful young woman from New Jersey who brought me out here, gave me a second chance, and I was able to, go to community college, graduate from Rutgers, build a career here. I have a small family farm now, and I owe her and the state an awful lot that I don't think I could ever repay, but I'm running to give it a shot. And you know what? If the people don't want me, that's one thing, but we get elected, I'm gonna work my ass off.
Thank you, sir. Oh yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome, guys. I'm glad to hear it. So, all right. So, why are we here? Why do we have a bunch of cannabis? Why am I here? Why, how is cannabis important to the community that you feel?
Well, so I just talked about some of my health issues. Cannabis for me, I was always pretty straight edge, but cannabis has become one of the main ways that I'm able to deal with the problems that I do still have. I'm no longer an epileptic. I haven't been for a while, but I do still have chronic migraine. I have vertiginous migraine, so I've got sea legs pretty much 24/7. And one of the few ways that I'm able to deal with that is cannabinoid compounds. But beyond that, no, I'm pretty much a libertarian, right? I'm a progressive libertarian, but I think that it is not the government's business to tell us what we can and can't do. I'm not going to advocate anybody breaking the law, but I don't think we should be legislating people growing weed or smoking weed or anything else they want to do in the privacy of their own home or backyard, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. Nobody else's damn business.
Yeah, everybody in the group. It's like a circle. If you guys want to, you guys go ahead. Feel free to ask questions of. It's not just me. What are you guys thinking over there? We got a bunch of good people in the circle here.
So it's apparent that you're both working class people. So what's your stance on protecting union jobs, creating union jobs, and making sure that the non-union workers have the ability to join a union freely without being harassed or threatened? And I ask this is because on the state level, we need protections as all labor unions because the federal government is under attack when this administration fired the NLRB judges. So we need support. So I think it would be good, to know your stance on that.
I got to be careful what I say. I think that unions are absolutely necessary. Oh.
Bless you.
That must be the campfire smoke.
Right.
So I went to the School of Management and Labor Relations at Rutgers, and I learned an awful lot of things that I didn't know about unions. Because growing up, I mentioned that my family had a grocery business. What I did not mention is that my grandfather was the victim of several attempts on his life from the Teamsters. And so unions were not my family's friend when I was growing up. Between the unions and the cartel, well, I don't really want to call the Teamsters a union.
Well, the
Between
we're not the
right, yeah, I'm definitely not the Teamsters, but yeah, between the Teamsters and the cartel, I actually grew up with fear of being kidnapped, and so that was an interesting experience. But I got to see in my grandfather and the business that we had what it was like to have a business where employees actually did feel like they were members of the family and would, go above and beyond. They'd go to each other's weddings and funerals, and it really was a very, intimate place to work. And my grandfather very much kept that going. When we sold the businesses to pay off all the debt that we got in 2008 to make ends meet, that changed overnight. Going from having, a family-owned business where the owner wants to know how your kid's doing at school, and if you need help paying for a quinceañera or a wedding, is gonna not just hand you cash, but it's not like a front on your salary. He's just gonna give you some money, or he's gonna cater the thing for you. Like, that's one thing. And then you go and you have a place that only cares about profit. They don't care about people. They're not there to serve the community, and they're sure as shit not there to serve their employees. That's a problem. And we see right now, the country is run by an oligarchy. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party are held hostage by money to special interests. And it leaves those of us who are blue collar or, of a middle class or poor background, it leaves you out of the lurch. And you don't have the money or the power to argue. The only way that you can get that power back is by organizing, by having unions. Unions aren't the only form of organizing, but they are the most effective. And the reason that they're the most effective is because they're the only one that threatens the money.
That's right.
You can have a mob that can threaten violence, but they'll just rebuild it. They have insurance. They don't care if you burn a building down. They don't care if you threaten them. It's not something that's going to put a billionaire oligarch off his stride. But if you shut down every single one of his factories, he's going to notice in a hurry.
Yes.
We saw that in Detroit. So I'm hoping we're going to see it with the air traffic controllers, but that's a different thing. Unions need our support in New Jersey because New Jersey needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet, needs to be able to resist the federal government. We need to be able to know that we're going to be able to take care of our neighbors. And the only way we can do that is by organizing. And that's why I support unions.
Well, that's great. That's awesome. And I think the fact that you made it clear that you want the state to do things to protect workers and unions should mean a lot to the service worker sector, the public sector, and definitely the trades. They have to see that. So I think one of the issues that we have in this state is that agricultural workers under the federal law can't organize. Okay, so they weren't given the right, and of course the law was written in 1930, so it's so antiquated, and it left a couple core people that can't join a union, and one of those folks is agricultural workers, and we know why that is, because who works the fields? So who?
Not anymore.
And yeah, I know, right? But it's racist policy. So the state constitution allows for all workers to organize, but there's no method of making that happen. There's no way to get there. You have to go to the Supreme Court because there's no NLRB on the state level. Would you be committed to allowing those workers to join a union in the state under state law, and then be committed to making sure that there's an agency that will take care of that and certify it?
Yes. I would absolutely support that.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we would have to be careful how we designed it, right? Like if we made something like the NLRB at the New Jersey state level and we didn't have checks and balances in it, all of the people who are already attacking New Jersey's unions would just have more cannon fodder, or not cannon fodder, ammunition. So we would probably want to mandate that it's like made up of small business owners, union members, maybe an elected official and an appointed official. You have a nice variety of folks.
Like a commission.
Yeah, like a commission. And so that way...
It's transparent. It's honest.
Yeah, exactly. And you represent everybody's interests. You want to represent the interests of maybe not big corporations because nobody fucking cares about them, but at least all of the businesses in New Jersey that have to compete with unions, right? You want to make sure they're represented. And unions are a concentration of power, so we want to make sure that we keep unions honest. But we also got to keep big corporations honest. And so having a state level board, I think, isn't just it's. I honestly hadn't thought about it until you asked me this question right now. I think that would be an amazing way to fight against oligarchic power. Of course, that means that getting it done probably is going to be pretty difficult.
I will tell you this. I think it will be difficult, no lie. But there's you have a lot of trades guys, you have a lot of service sector workers, public sector workers that want something like that on the state level. Yeah. California is trying to do it. New York's trying to do it. New Jersey is a blue state, working class, state mindset. Um, so look, I think it's possible. I think you make state NLRB or something in that method. And would you support letting agricultural workers join the union?
Oh, of course, of course. I have worked in agriculture. We have a small farm. It's not a very successful farm. I kill everything that I touch. I feel like, but
The big guys are a different thing, right?
yeah, it's completely different. I don't have a bunch of people that I'm taking advantage of planting everything for me and doing everything. I'm just trying to find time on nights and weekends, man. But there are big commercial farms that I remember reading about. There were people that were getting doused in pesticides in Florida, doing like oranges and stuff. And they didn't have any safety equipment. They didn't have anything. They're just like, here's your Agent Orange. Go spray it over there. And they all got cancer, every single one of them. And they got deported. Wow. They went to go try and get health care, and they got deported. And this wasn't recent. This was like 20, maybe 30 years ago. But that sort of thing needs to be defended against. I don't care if you're an immigrant, if you're, somebody whose family has been here since the frickin' Mayflower. You have an equal right to be defended under the law. There's Thaddeus Stevens, an abolitionist, made a big point of saying that all people are equal under the law. And, at the time, he was also trying to not say that.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Yeah, no, it's great. So everybody equal. How do you guys feel about home grow? Yeah, you guys over there. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody want to talk about it? Everybody got a question? Want to?
Yeah, the gentleman wanted to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hand him a
Yeah.
microphone.
Go ahead, sir.
Please.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's still illegal in New Jersey to grow your own wheat.
Of course it is, but how do we feel about change? How do we change that?
Right.
There's a lot of people out there. We talk about agriculture and jobs and farming and everything else.
Absolutely.
A lot of people out there, a lot of jobs, a lot of money out there for people. They can do it. The ancillary businesses. What do we got?
Right now I think we're really forced to go to a dispensary, which I think is great because it forces a lot of safety protocol on the growers. But in that sense, and kind of getting back to big corporations, there's a lot of large corporations in New Jersey that run a lot of these dispensaries or grow facilities. And right now, even we can get into taxes another day, but the taxes on marijuana, it's a flat, at least the excise taxes is $2.50 an ounce. So if you're a super large corporation in New Jersey, you have the lowest margins or you have the best margins on the lowest quality marijuana that you can put out, because there's no regulation even on. I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great. Keep going, man. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just hanging out.
No, yeah, we're listening.
But it's $2.50 an ounce, so there's no market adjustments based on what the consumers actually want or consider like a high quality product as well. So, even if you want a boutique product, if you want a really well soil grown product, you can't consider it organic quite yet because it's still federally illegal. But if you want a really high quality product, they're still paying the same amount of taxes on each side, which is crazy. You would think that they would kind of adjust for it, and almost, we don't really necessarily want more and more taxes, but they could collect for it accordingly. But sorry, a little diversion. But we really need homegrown. We need the option to avoid that if
absolutely.
We want to grow our own in New Jersey.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I think, with Michael the other day, we were talking to State Senator Vin Gopal, and he was talking about how right now they're currently discussing, how many plants per residence or whatever could be the correct number in terms of home grow. So that is a discussion. But what he was lamenting, if I do remember correctly, was that there wasn't enough support in the assembly. So he's in the Senate. He needs people in the assembly to put the bill out. We could be allies in that way, and put this forward. Yeah, so I'm fully in support of that. And then when it comes to like regulation, I'm not as much of a agricultural scientist, but from my perspective, if you can grow tomatoes in your backyard and not need permission from the FDA to eat them, then why would you need some kind of a regulatory, you can smoke what you grow in your backyard, you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
you don't need the government to watch you do it. It's fine, as if you were tomatoes, onions, whatever. So I'm in favor of home grow all the way. We can support it in the legislature. So I hope that answers the first part of that. And then the second part was that's good, right? Yeah.
We can get into
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But it's just avoiding major corporations. I mean,
Cool.
allowing for more maybe micro business.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But just avoiding major corporations in New Jersey, really just enabling more micro businesses in New Jersey to thrive.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah.
Social equity, micro business. That's what it's all about. New
But
Jersey.
that's what they feel like they won't have any control. That's why they don't want to let it happen. But if the proper regulations are put forward, then okay, you can grow it at home, but you can't sell it. I mean, that would be fine with me. But because they got to have their hand in every time we go, and we pay a good tax for that, and I appreciate it. I'm happy. But that's the other thing that.
Yeah, let's go. While you got it, I'll stop you right there. Hold on to that. Don't even.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah. A lot of. I can hear you perfect. You
Perfect.
sound great.
Hi.
So I was while you were talking about our conversation with Vin the other day.
Yeah.
A big problem is young people voting.
Oh, right.
They don't even know what's going on, what to do. How I see you've got the microphone there. The younger generation. I know because I'm going to bring you up on the screen. This is Hannah Katz has the microphone there. New Jersey Young Dems Environmental Caucus.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Hi.
She's going to talk a little bit about how
Very
we can
nice to
maybe
meet you all.
ask a couple questions here.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are asking, how do we get young people mobilized? Something I've learned from my experience of being an environmental organizer for over a decade now, and I'm 27. It started right after high school, but it's something that's been embedded in my entire life. And I have found that people of all generations are clueless. There are people who are 90 years old, 50 years old, my age and younger, who unfortunately are not environmental voters, or are not conscious voters, conscious shoppers. They do not utilize some of the same morals or values that I personally use when making decisions. So young people are actually really aware. And, on social media right now, we have massive digital movements and communication initiatives to get people involved. And it's becoming easier and easier to do things like donate on Act Blue, or to get someone's ideals out by making a cool video that gets a lot of likes, and you can even pay for ad shares. So young people are informed and are getting involved. The issue is every single generation throughout time has had young people who felt like old people didn't understand. Sorry, not to call anyone old. That young people have had felt that older generations don't understand, and I'm sure you've all felt like that at one time in your life. So to debunk what you had just said, I think young people are organizing and are more informed now than ever, especially those who are using social media as a positive tool.
But they do vote less than everybody else.
That's unfortunate. What's the category of young people we're thinking of in that statistic? Like, what's the
18 to
age?
24 is the bracket that I'm most familiar with, but
Yeah.
I believe it just is a linear thing that the older you get, the more you vote.
That's true. That's true. I did vote my first year out of high school. It was Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. I was very much for Bernie Sanders. I think that something went wrong in the timeline when he did not win.
My first vote was Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader. That election, we saw so much change, and for the first time ever, I gave a shit about politics. So right out of high school, I was politicized or radicalized, as some may say, which It really isn't. It's just getting involved like a normal tax-paying citizen. As people start paying more taxes, they also start realize how important their voice in government is. And so sometimes I see older people getting more involved because they say they want to make sure that their investments and their money are going to the right places. Sometimes young people are not quite educated on how important long-term investments are. So one of my jobs here in New Jersey is to promote long-term funding for resilience, especially resilience to extreme weather events. Because flooding is one of the number one factors that's impacting where I choose to live. Well, one of them, besides, are there some cool places around to hang out and some nice parks to walk in, but we live in a statewide flood zone, essentially. Up here, it's very nice. It's a mountainous region, and you guys supply. I think the highlands around here make up 1/3 of New Jersey, but supply water to a huge greater majority. So I wanted to go back to one of the questions that that you had answered earlier, along the lines of how do we support regulation that's thoughtful and doesn't harm individuals and allows people individual autonomy as well. Home grow is so important for many reasons. Of course, we all here today know the importance of home grow. Also, religious reasons, health reasons. People in Oregon are able to grow 3 plants at home, I think, and then gift others like an ounce without getting in trouble. And it's Oregon, but so far no complaints about it, and the police are not arresting people over marijuana anymore, which all of us probably experience some sort of anxiety around the police and marijuana, which we're all still getting used to. But as also people who live in New Jersey, we all probably know someone who's been impacted by laced marijuana, laced drugs, maybe not laced marijuana here, but there was a case where in Tennessee a couple years ago there was fentanyl in marijuana that some folks had smoked, right? So how do we make sure that people at home are able to smoke safely and that there aren't other but one of the questions is for myself, just wondering this, is how do we assure that people aren't dying if we're putting trust into people's hands to do things in the autonomy of their homes, which they absolutely should be allowed. But I think that's where a checked federal government comes in, because like I think the one thing that, sorry, I'm going off. I hope this isn't too long, but one of the shared issues that we're having, I think all of us, is that we're tired of unchecked big business is taking advantage of people, polluting or harming them in some way. And at the end of the day, agencies like the EPA, for example, are supposed to exist to keep big polluters in check, to make sure that people don't die from pollution. How can we make sure that the cannabis industry, as it grows, stays sustainable and in the hands of the people while being thoughtfully taken care of?
Okay, so there's like 4 questions.
That was a big
So,
rant. Sorry about
First question, I believe, was how do we pass legislation that is thoughtful, effective, and actually can pass? The second question, I think, I actually don't remember. I had 3 in my head.
I could also like maybe.
But there's
Yeah.
this one that you had that was about how do we make sure people don't die from stuff that they grow in their house.
And in general, from
like,
from big
then the
pharma,
cannabis
from the
industry,
abuse
like
of-
in general, how do we regulate it in a way that doesn't choke a baby industry? Basically, is that kind of
yes,
okay?
and keeps it in the power of
So-
the people.
For the first question, young people, so or anger in general. To go back to the previous topic, right? I think right now, a lot of people are disaffected. You know, we have lower voter turnouts every year, and it's because nobody believes in any of the candidates. You know, Republicans are going harder to the right. They've lost an awful lot of their base. Democrats aren't going far enough to the left. They're losing a lot of their base. Because where a centrist Democrat would have been 20 years ago, they're now considered like a progressive by centrists. The entire nation has swung harder to the right, which is interesting because traditionally, Republicans have been more for people doing whatever they want, and Democrats have been against it. So when we talk about, legislation at your home, it's almost a cultural thing. New Jersey,
Definitely.
we don't trust people to make their own decisions, right? We regulate everything. We don't trust that you're going to make anything and then not kill somebody. It's why when Phil Murphy signed the cottage industry law, he vetoed beekeepers preparing honey outside of a commercial kitchen. We overregulate everything in New Jersey. My personal view is that it's none of the government's business, right? Earlier I mentioned that I'm basically a democratic libertarian. I think the government is there to defend people from things they cannot defend themselves from. I'm not encouraging anybody to break the law, but like me personally, I don't care if you're moonshining. I don't care if you're growing your own tobacco. I don't care if you're growing your own weed. I think every person has a right to do what they need to do to sustain their lives. And if you're, we don't have anybody like this in New Jersey, but I was listening to an interview with a guy who lives in the bush in Alaska. They don't have liquor stores in Alaska. It's illegal, but this guy's making moonshine and he's selling it to his neighbors so that he can get the other supplies that he needs to live his life. Now, I'm not going to go have the ATF go arrest that dude. That would be silly. Everybody has a right to do what they need to do to survive. And there's plenty of examples, even in New Jersey, of us not regulating things that are effectively homegrown. How many Italians have you met that grow their own grapes and make their own wine? We're not worried about them lacing the wine with cocaine and handing it out to 5-year-old kids. Why are we worried about people growing weed in their backyard? We need to trust that most people are generally good people and have some sort of good judgment. Individuals are pretty smart. It's only when you put us all together that we get really stupid. And so if you're looking at an individual in their home, you don't have to worry as much as you do about, say, traffic on the turnpike. There's not enough of us there to make poor decisions.
As long as you're going fast in the left lane, that's all that matters about the.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Not to bring this to a different place, but the passing lane exactly. Yes.
By the way, I'm big on the environmental stuff, so we need to swap digits. It's 150 something, I think. I could be wrong.
Keep talking about that. That's fine. Sure.
So something that Mr. Giordano and I have been involved in. Oh, sorry. So something Mr. Giordano and I have been involved in Trenton is discussions around synthetic cannabinoids and hemp-derived cannabinoids. So I know you said that people should have the right to moonshine and make dangerous substances, but what about fake weed? These synthetic cannabinoids such as THCO and THCP are not naturally derived from cannabis, but they're on store shelves at gas stations and unregulated cannabis stores being sold as cannabis products. And there are millions of consumers that cannot tell the difference on these items. There's also the hemp beverages starting to pop up, totally outside of the CRC, and they come from out of state. They come from God knows where in terms of testing and the labor standards. And I'm just wondering, if you would commit to supporting New Jersey's growers and workers and keeping those synthetic items off store shelves because they're not cannabis products. It is a disservice to the public to be deceived in that way, and sold items that are not even found naturally in a cannabis plant. So
I'm 100% for banning those. And the reason is because there's no way to regulate what's in them. There's no way that you can look at it and know what you're having. There's a very, very big difference, even if you're shining, between having something that you grew and made and having something that somebody makes in a lab. Right. And for me, if it comes from the soil, botulism comes from the soil, so not everything's good. But if it comes from the soil and you're growing it and you process it into something, that should fall under cottage industry laws. We need like cottage weed laws. That's right. And when you're looking at the safety question, my running mate Guy mentioned tomatoes earlier. Yeah. They're part of the Solanaceae family. That's the deadly nightshade family. You take a green tomato, I can make a poison out of it that'll kill anybody. And it's a very unpleasant way to go. I've actually had solanine poisoning. It causes your entire intestines to cramp up at the same time. and it's like being squeezed out like a toothpaste tube. But we don't regulate that. We don't regulate potatoes and tomatoes because we know that they're a productive thing. Yeah.
I would just add that locally here in our district, Sonia and I actually know a person who purchased a plot of land in a town kind of like this, and it was a former industrial site. Like it had done some sort of chemical damage to the soil. I'm not really sure the entire story, but he had cleaned it up. The place was zoned agricultural, and because of the existing buildings that were there, he was able to repurpose them to grow, hydroponic scale, small cottage industrial marijuana. And the town went apeshit over it. Like they hated it, But it would have created union jobs. He actually had, I think, an agreement with the union. I think you might know the gentleman who I'm talking about. I'll just keep the names out of it. But yeah, like this, what you guys are talking about reminds me of this actually very local, real situation where because of a stigma, right? A stigma and like a feeling that like this is like the wrong kind of business here. Jobs weren't created, good product wasn't made, and it could have been regulated and it could have been, a really great cottage industry. Because right down the street, and this is just one layer deeper, right? Just to kind of show you like how weird it is, I think. In the same town, there was a guy doing hydroponic scale vegetables, similarly zoned. Same town. So one guy gets to do it pretty much, with the same impact to the environment, the same whatever you want to call impact to the traffic pattern, whatever you want to call it. And one guy's not because it's associated with cannabis. So I think that's kind of also what we're up against, this stigma. And yeah, we need to empower the small businesses. Yeah.
So this is for the patient base. So the medical cannabis program, as a union we support it, but then as an individual I'm a patient too, card carrying, and I always say two things that you deprive from my body is my union card and my medical card. So so the question about patients is one of the things we've been talking about. When they were medical, they had to convert to adult use, so they still have both licenses. There's a lot of adult use stores now, and they don't have the conversion to medical either. So would you support the CRC to say, hey, you can give out medical permits to these other cultivators that don't have it? Of course, they'll pay a fee, right? They'll pay a fee, whatever. But it opens access to more places for patients to go. And I'm not just talking patients that might have anxiety. I'm talking about patients that have stage 4 and can't get out of their house. And they're not, and the delivery is going to cost them so much money because the closest medical approved one might be 60 miles away, right? So there's limited compared. Would you support that conversion so that patients have more access? And the other thing, just to play off what we're saying about standards and safety for home grow, I think it would be just an idea that you say that you'll do medical home grow first, because you have to have a card to home grow. It's a simple way to, hey, we're going to check on you, make sure you're not growing 1,000 plants in the back. It's a way to do it, but you could do training classes from the state saying, don't use these chemicals. Probably not good to inhale this as it grows, like whatever. You like this, and maybe that patient pays $25 a year to have a special stamp saying they're going to be able to home grow. It's the way to regulate. It's the way to. Some patients won't want to home grow, but the ones that do, at least you'll know who they are. So those are my questions.
I would definitely support both of those things. I would also take it one step further. I think that every MD in the state of New Jersey should be able to give you a medical card. because there's no reason. Like, I don't suffer from,
Preach.
like anorexia or anything, but if I did, I could be prescribed weed to help me get over some of that stuff, help with the anxiety, help with the appetite. But, your psychologist, probably not going to be able to do that. Your psychiatrist, not going to be able to do that. And if I go to my endocrinologist, they can't give me a medical card. My neurologist can't give me a medical card. So you have to go to certain people. And where I live, there's only like 2 people within an hour of my house that could give me a medical card. So I haven't gotten one yet. I just keep doing it as adult use, despite the fact that my neurologist is the one who told me to start trying cannabis in the first place. So there's no reason to restrict it that way. Anything that helps access for people that have a hard time getting it, like your cancer patient, example, I'm 100% for.
Yeah, ditto.
I'd like to bring it back to the environment for a question, but only if you guys are done.
Sure.
Okay. So New Jersey is expected to be completely built out by 2050, and you guys have a massive warehouse here that's contributing to flooding. Several warehouses that are contributing to road traffic, flooding, impervious ground cover, biodiversity loss, everything that you can think of with excessive development. As we use land space for the growing cannabis industry, what will you do as we support you as candidates to assure that the zoning in your area is thoughtful, sustainable, and kept in check for long-term benefits to the people?
I mean, I would love to take a crack at it, but I think Tyler, you're so much smarter at this than I am. I just love hearing him.
And also,
Yeah.
as we are concerned about water usage.
Yeah.
As well, we have to, and I've been smoking weed for a long time, but I've always felt so guilty about my impact in terms of the amount of waste I create from the blunt wraps, the little plastic parts from the pen, the disposable, anything disposable, anything like that. In my opinion, there needs to be some more programs in place to assure the life cycle of these things and make sure that we're having long-term sustainability for our land use and our environment along with the weed. How can we work hand in hand with the planet?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just listen to the experts, and I'm lucky and happy to be working with nice people at the Highlands Coalition, local Sierra Club, local League of Conservation Voters, and we are all looking at the overdevelopment of warehouses right here. Like, that is something across the board we understand is really changing everything from the flooding, to people's basements being completely wiped out. Not to mention the damage to the wildlife and the whole ecosystem. How to sustainably use any kind of industrial scale commodity crop like cannabis, I personally don't know. I don't know, but to my understanding, if you're growing hemp for what, clothing, or is it fabric, or
Yeah, you can grow it for those purposes. You can grow it for those purposes. You just need like a federal license. They had to get it at the Rutgers extension in Pittstown, and it was an absolute pain in the ass for them.
So if it's that kind of a cottage industrial like farm, for lack of a better way of saying it, where it's not necessarily the product, the final product is a medical grade, something that would be in a medicinal use. Then I think it's a different scale of regulation, right? So how do we then, like, does it require, like, to grow medical grade marijuana, you need a lot of like chemical input, you need a lot of energy, right? It's like a lot of lighting, it's a lot of ventilation,
Right.
So it's a different impact, and we want to just make sure that that's not being, I guess.
Yeah, I guess Hugh, maybe you're the person who would
sorry.
know. No, I'm just wondering because are there practices that are being done now, like for example, vertical farming of marijuana or other sorts of sustainable uh, irrigation methods that are being applied so that we can make sure that we're balancing our water resources with the growing cannabis industry? And then that's probably a question for all agricultural industries as well. But do you know of any practices that are being done, or also incentives to be sustainable?
So, two things on that. Technology is getting good in the back of the house. They're finding ways to use less water, reuse what they grow from trimmings and recycling and all that stuff. So, the big issue that you said was about the plastics and all that stuff. That's a huge issue. I totally agree with that. I mean, pre-rolls, everything you buy. But that's where the hemp cottage industry, like you guys have suggested, would come into play because then they can make paper, use paper, everything. Those paper boxes are a pain in the ass though to open, but they're more sustainable. If you throw it out the window, it's not gonna go into a river, right? So, um, and the thing about the medical grade and adult use grade, the reality of it is it's the same product. I mean, everything's tested the same. That's why it wouldn't be a problem giving an AU person a medical, because it's the same, comes from the same warehouse, same workers produce it. So don't think it's a different room, because it's definitely not. So I think that they just follow the law, make good product, you regulate safety, then maybe you can incentivize from through state grants these companies to do maybe recycle their plastic, bring it back. You get a penny for every pre-roll thing you bring back, and you get points. I don't know, but
Yeah, come on in. Sit down. Come on in. Sit down. Hold on. Get a microphone.
Give her a microphone.
Get a microphone. We can. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay, so I'm Class 2 manufacturing legally in New Jersey. And I would say that if we could get some assistance, especially as far as the incentivizing goes, New Jersey does have great programs for manufacturers where, like, if you buy certain equipment or you use certain brands and stuff like that, that they give you tax breaks, or they'll allow you to have grants that reimburse you for the purchases that you've made that contribute to the environment. And unfortunately, 99.999% of that doesn't come to us in cannabis. And so therefore, as a cannabis operator, I'm not necessarily incentivized, like you said, to pick all the best things and to get all the best things, because they skip over us, even though we're a part of the entire manufacturing industry that contributes to the state. And I don't know if you know this, but the NJEDA and like a whole bunch of other people for New Jersey, they released a multi-billion-dollar grant program for all kinds of manufacturers, but they literally left out the cannabis manufacturers. So if you could use your voices to help us out with that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please. Do you have a card? Thank you.
Just kind of to talk to that for a second. That is extraordinarily important, and it's important for more than just helping manufacturers, right? When we talk about preserving farmland, when we talk about preserving, the environment, what your question was earlier, you need economic incentive, because to your point, when you said, I'm curious where you got that, by the way, the New Jersey is going to be developed by 2050, like completely. I don't think that we'll let that happen, but the growth that we see is crazy. Every plot of land will be developed to the extent it can be. Is that what that is?
Yeah, every plot of land will be built out in some way, whether it's claimed for preservation or being used for a purpose.
I gotcha. So when I look at farmland, there is so much of it that is not preserved, and there is so much of it that is kept as open space as like a kind of farm cosplay. Somebody just wants a really big lawn attached to their McMansion kind of a thing. And I'm not really against those, but if we want to continue to be the Garden State, if we want to continue to have a lot of farmers actually growing anything here, then it needs to be worth their while. And marijuana is a cash crop. We should be mailing weed seeds to every single guy who just got fucked on soybeans. Everybody who's struggling with the tariffs right now should be growing weed. That's what we should be doing as a state. We should absolutely be investing in becoming one of the biggest suppliers of hemp and marijuana products in North America. We have the soil for it. The town that I'm in, Franklin Township, Hunterdon County, has some of the best soil in the world. In the world.
I've been to some really, really big grows down in South Jersey, and it's just remarkable what these people can do when they're given the opportunity. And we stop the stigma and everything else. And they're farmers. There's some growers in the state that are third generation farmers that are now turned to cannabis, that are really decided to start making money that way.
It's amazing. And you can't tell me you wouldn't like to see a John Deere hat with some marijuana leaves on it. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think really my question was more so, what are we going to do to assure that if we do become the biggest producer of marijuana on the East Coast, for example, what are we going to do to make sure that they don't screw us, the landowners, the homeowners here, in terms of land use and developing this industry in our state? Amazon is not based in New Jersey. There's many Amazon warehouses here. The tax dollars used and also spent on recovering from the damages done by these warehouses we don't really see the benefits returned from them. Yeah, so I guess the question is, what are you guys going to do to make sure that that doesn't happen?
I have an energy policy for you. So I have a comprehensive set of plans and legislation that, to be honest, would take an act of God to get all of it to pass. But I would like to see community ownership of power generation to keep money in the local economy and give, because they control the power, literally, the control of what kind of warehouses, what kind of things can be hooked up to the grid, right? Because you can sue a municipality for not allowing you to develop a warehouse. But if they really don't want you there, nobody says they have to hook you up to the power, son. So I think having more levers of power in the hands of local communities is a good idea. On the other hand, home rule has been very difficult. So we have to thread the needle there, because we also want affordable housing. We also want, communities who are very NIMBY-esque to maybe build nuclear power close enough to them that it actually is worth piping it in, right? We want to tackle all these complex issues, of which the ecology of our area is just one. I'm a huge environmentalist. I'm a conservationist. I'm involved a little bit with, a couple of different organizations, mostly as a donor. But in the state of New Jersey, most of our open land is seen as an economic asset, right? We're not one of these states that has ridiculous amounts of acreage where nobody does anything and it's just kind of empty. We're the most densely populated state in the union. So we do have some regulation around what you're asking for. It's just not weed specific. I think we keep that. We localize more money. We localize more authority over utilities. And by doing both of those, we're able to tackle some of the problems of the future. Like, there's not a lot we can do about Amazon. They're already here. But we can guide, say, AI data centers. We can guide the next warehouse that's built. We can guide light manufacturing as 3D printer manufacturing plants begin to open. We can look to the future and make sure those things are done smartly, but that they are still done, right? We need to thread the needle between making sure that those industries burgeon and thrive in New Jersey and regulating them to the point where they don't do harm to our communities. I don't have a good answer for you on how exactly to do that. It'll probably be a very long, very complex bill, but I agree that it needs to be done.
Regulation and not wanting the government
regulation and not wanting the government to get involved was what she said. I just wanted to say that into the mic because I know that it's a tough balance. I think that if we strike the balance by coming down harder on corporations and allowing people at the individual level, at the cottage industry level, literally out of their own cottage, to have a little bit more freedom, we're good, right? We regulate large vineyards. We don't regulate Papa Gianello making a couple of gallons of vino
In his
basement.
victory garden. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. That's yeah. In his market garden.
Yes.
We have to make big polluters and big corporations.
Yeah.
Speaking of market gardens, nobody's asked this question, and probably nobody cares, but I would love to see tax incentives in New Jersey tied to having gardens at your house.
Actually, there are. There are.
Oh, hold on to it, Tyler. Here.
And this is going back to the environment, but I've been saying for a long time, New Jersey is the garden state.
Right.
So instead of paying all this money to have the state mow all these stupid medians, and there's a perfect place down in the center of Phillipsburg, it could just be all flowers, wild flowers, so that it's good for the bees and birds. We're losing them by butterflies are starting to disappear from around here, and I would like to see something like that. I'm a big hippie. I'd go out for the day and plant some wildflower somewhere. And give
You do the
people
gorilla
taxes.
bomb thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And people maybe get a tax break if they turn part of their golf course lawn into a sustainable wildlife and bird and bug refuge type thing.
Yeah, I'll. Oh, okay.
So I'm so sorry. I'm taking the mic a lot.
That's okay.
I was part of the organization that helped build 3 rain gardens here in Phillipsburg. At the Phillipsburg, if you guys ever want to visit it, the Phillipsburg Library.
It's a beautiful place.
The Phillipsburg I guess it'd be weird to visit a middle school, but if you have any kids there, we built the the rain garden there and at the elementary school. So preferably don't visit those last 2, but please visit the one at the public library and support your public library. And there are incentive programs to build rain gardens. And Rutgers University works with the Highlands Preservation Alliance and the Highlands Coalition with their landscape makeover program. And it's basically like homeowners in certain places. And then there's a lot of places. There's a list on their website. They'll actually design a rain garden for your property, whether it's a public building like a library or a home or a school or government building. But people don't know about these programs, and a lot of these environmental organizations need help with getting the word out, especially from elected officials who plug them in and work with them on these types of initiatives. Sorry.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
This is kind of getting back into, I forget the lady who left earlier, but kind of getting back to her on almost like allocation of the funds for the
Right.
startups.
Yeah, right.
So there's almost like no transparency
Right.
in I feel in how cannabis is taxed in New Jersey right now. I think it gets put into a general fund, but like she said, they say there's all these grants and stuff, but they're not really receiving anything. And I've heard over the course of some businesses that's what's going on. There's no allocation of these funds, or the programs that they say they're going to. It's very vague, and it's not very direct. So we really don't know where all this money is going. So I'd really love to see more transparency. No one enjoys more taxes, but I think just transparency into the taxes and maybe some more allocated funds, on even a receipt. I know in Colorado, California, some other states, they have almost like a QR code at the bottom of a receipt, and it's based off of their metric system that they have in the state. And it just
Tells you where your
allows
taxes
more.
go.
Yeah, you know exactly where it's going. It's this fund. Roads are sponsored by dispensaries sometimes in some of these states, and they're part of cleanup programs and just really part of the environment, part of the community. And when you have really large, I guess, corporations and a very vague tax structure in New Jersey, we really don't know what's going on most of the time. And I would just like to see more programs, even if it's in municipalities. You know, where is this going? You know, if we allow dispensaries here in this county or in this town, then we should reap the benefits of our municipality for having that.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect that until we see federal law make that a little easier, we're not gonna be able to reap those full benefits, just because the Fed can probably take the cash, right? Just like they could take it from a dispensary, they probably take revenue from something that's illegal at the federal level from the state of New Jersey. It'd be a fight, but
Yeah, I totally agree. But I guess just statewide, just the state taxes, because I know it's not federally legal, right? Maybe I'm not understanding you correctly.
it's not federally legal, so they can confiscate the funds. It's not
Oh,
federally
from the
legal, so
state.
they can confiscate. Yeah, they can confiscate the funds from the state. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hi, how you doing? Yeah. What I would say is that what I think has gotten Tyler and I the most positive attention locally is the fact that we already do a lot of constituent services. Like when people tell us that something's wrong at this meeting or that meeting, or someone's getting screwed over here, or the people need a voice over there, who can show up to the public meetings and get on record for the people, whether it's for the warehouse that's coming to destroy the town, or the book that someone's trying to ban at the library. Like, we've been showing up for the people. So all I can say is, if you know about a situation, we want to make a constituent service to hear what's going on, and then you help us understand how we can fix it. And then that becomes the policy.
Fantastic.
We work on it together.
Attend and help you out through
Right.
the process. Yeah.
Like
certainly.
that's our kind of leadership, Like that's what we're trying to achieve, is this teamwork. We work with you, we'll figure it
I
out.
love it. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm all about it. Thank you.
Yeah. And what's your name again? And where do you live?
Russell. I'm actually right here in Warren County.
Right here in Warren County. So Belvedere, right?
down the
We were
road.
chatting before the
I
fireside.
know exactly.
Okay.
I didn't get to chime in earlier. But
No,
I know,
this is
I know
fantastic.
exactly the place we were talking about the vegetable grow.
Oh, you know the guy.
And the no, not the guy specifically.
Okay,
but
because
I
it's a
know-
story, and I didn't want to
know
embarrass
of
Hugh
him.
sitting
I
next to
know
me, because it is the
quite
local gossip is the local politics is
yes,
Warren
yes.
County's crazy, bro.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, here locally, I lived out in Colorado for 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
just about, in the cannabis industry, heavily involved. Really the CBD and hemp space. It was kind of getting into the synthetic cannabinoids. It was
Mm-hmm.
a lot less regulated. As an 18-year-old that wasn't 21 yet, that was the business I chose to get into. But so a lot of experience in the cannabis industry, hemp space. And this is why I'm just so passionate about it, realistically.
Right. And like what I was trying to convey, and I want to reiterate, is that, we already have our eyes on local land use issues that are related directly to, small cottage industrial scale production that can be safe, that can be creating union jobs, and, actually like taking us forward, as a local community and a culture. So yeah, we're already eyes on this. So that I can say, and thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Tyler, anyone want to chime in? I think we're feeling like we've got it all out there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Anyone who's still with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was great, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. And remember, the biggest thing is go out and vote.
Yes.
Just go vote, no matter what. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, hit that like, subscribe, thumbs up. Every Wednesday night, we do this live at the Dispensary Guy. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful night, and take care, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much.